Two tails, one head. Young yin. Sorry, young yang. Two tails, one head. Young yang. Two tails, one head. Young yang. This is the trigram Qian heaven. Two heads, one tail, young yin. 2 heads, 1 tail, young yin. Three tails, old yin. Our bottom trigram will be read as solid, solid, solid. This is the trigram Qian Heaven. Whew. Qian is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change in what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to be, what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Our top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, broken, broken. This is Kun Earth. Kun is Earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is Mother, found in the southwest, and the harvest time of late summer and early autumn. Kun Earth above Qian Heaven give us the primary hexagram. 11. Once our sixth line transforms from old yin to young yang, that'll give us a top trigram to our supporting hexagram of broken, broken, solid. This is the trigram Gen Mountain. The mountain is still. It is a limit where you must stop. Gen brings each cycle to an end, defining a space where we can recognize, assimilate, and complete our experience. He creates a personal still center amid change, where we can retreat for perspective and a firm foundation for new growth. He is well-grounded, confident, and of independent spirit. He is still and knows. Mountain is the youngest son, child of maturity. In the cycle of directions and seasons, he is the northeast, late winter, approaching spring, the pivot between cycles. Gen mountain above Qian heaven. Give us the supporting hexagram of 26. We will get the titles to our hexagrams from Liu I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Hexagram 11, Liu I-ming calls Tranquility, harmony of strength and flexibility. And our supporting hexagram 26, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 26, Liu I-ming calls Nurturance of the Great. Being able to be still when strong, practicing non-doing to nurture incipient enlightenment. Something I wanted to share with you all. We're moving, and so going through the garage, I found this. I didn't even realize I still had it. This is Li Ming Mang Randy Pat Ben, I believe, is what my mom called him. But she, I think, had him even restuffed. It was that important to her. I'm not sure how young she was when she first got this, but anyway, this was important to my mom. She's passed away now. But God, is this comforting as shit. You know? Anyway. Also, I'm kind of hot, but I found today a really cool piece of art and got it for just less than $40. And it's pretty phenomenal. I'm gonna grab it and show it to you. Give me just a second. Yeah. Almost shocking. But it's called Bring Them Back. What is it? Bring Back Our Girls. Anyway, you can look this up. I looked up the image of it. And Linda Barnhart here did it and won an award in 2016 with this piece of art, and it was up on the wall inside bear with me. Where did he go? Inside of a building. Can't remember what it was, but I'm sure you can find the details. Anyway, phenomenal piece of artwork. It's kind of haunting and beautiful. The eyes, I guess. Anyway, to share with you all. So we will start out with Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. It's a nice introductory I Ching commentary and also quite profound. Hexagram 11. Hilary Barrett calls flow. When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Key questions: how will you work with this extraordinary potential? How can you channel the flow of energy to create harmony? Oracle: flow. Small goes, great comes. Good fortune, creating success. Flow is a sign of the free and full expression of tremendous creative energy. It is the name of China's most sacred mountain, Tai, which is imbued with spiritual power. The king would make great offerings at its summit to establish a flourishing, peaceful relationship with heaven. This is a time to create harmony with the greater flow, letting its energy pour into creative manifestation as a river flows down into a fertile valley. Pettiness is swept away downstream, and the way opens for free communication. Great things become possible. The true scale of things is revealed, dwarfing your smaller concerns. You sense the powers that surge through your life and know how far beyond your control they are. Yet you can enter into true relationship with them and participate in flow. Image: heaven and earth communicate. Flow. The prince enriches and completes the way of heaven and earth, upholds and assists the order of heaven and earth to support and protect the people. Creative force flows through the earth. Potential joins with the space for growth. Everything is possible. The prince blessed with flow wholly invests himself in bringing it to fruition in the human realm. He weaves the powers of inspiration and realization together into a synergistic context for creative work. To bring out its full potential, he will work actively to bring all people, energies, and areas of life into harmony inside its embrace. Sequence. Flow follows from hexagram 10, treading. Treading and also flow, and then there is peace. And so flow follows. Flow means flowing together. Treading behind the tiger, you learn to respond, dance, and move skillfully with greater powers. With flow, you come into close relationship with them. To be tranquil with such potent energy rather than engulfed by it, you will need to know how to tread. Pair. Flow is paired and contrasted with hexagram 12, blocked. Blocked and flow are of opposite kind. In flow, heaven and earth connect. In blocked, they separate. Flow communicates. Blocked closes the channel. Flow makes everything possible. Blocked means nothing worthwhile can be achieved. Pardon. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 26, Hilary Barrett calls great taming. Key questions: how can you make the most of the potential? How would it be to master this? Oracle: great taming. Constancy bears fruit. Not eating at home, good fortune. Fruitful to cross the great river. The farmer both restrains and controls the energies of nature, and also builds up natural resources and nurtures their growth. He tames. Great taming means doing this work with an end in mind, thinking of what can be achieved in future by controlling and accumulating the energies available now. Steady persistence over time, letting each crop complete its growth, will yield good harvests. This enables you to go beyond your habitual boundaries and nourish yourself on new experience. You can go where more will be asked of you and your gifts will be of greater service. You can sustain values beyond mere survival. The aim is not to achieve perfect control, staying home and accumulating as an end in itself. Whatever you accumulate becomes a springboard to new commitments and explorations. Great taming cultivates the resources for life on a larger scale. Image: heaven dwells in the center of the mountain, great taming. A noble one uses the many annals of ancient words and past deeds and builds up his character. Heaven, the creative force, dwells at the center of what it creates. The present contains the principle and energy that shaped it, and all this is available in the store of memory and written words. A noble one goes into this mountain cave of treasures to read and absorb, cultivating his own quality of character and personal power. Sequence: great taming follows from hexagram 25 without entanglement. Being without entanglement, hence capable of taming, and so great taming follows. To be fully engaged with present opportunity, you must first be fully disentangled from the past. You need to be free from all the things that are not yours to work on before you can make the most of those that are. You disengage in order to re-engage wholeheartedly. Next, we will read our changing line 6 of hexagram 11, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements, and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 6 has the general context, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 6 of hexagram 11, flow. The bulwarks fall back into the moat. Don't use the army. From your own city, declaring the mandate. Constancy means shame. The walls are in the moat, the city crumbles back to where it came from, and the ground is leveled again. There is no call for armies here. Flow has brought change, leaving nothing for them to attack or defend. The old constructions are simply no longer viable. There is no position to hold anymore. But at the summit of Mount Tai, a new ruler has come into harmony with the spirits and received the mandate from heaven. Declare this mandate from your city. Announce your authentic purpose from your own seat of authority. The soldiers can become farmers again and cultivate new fields. Next, we will look at I-ming's Taoist I Ching that he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Tranquility. The small goes, the great comes. This is auspicious and developmental. Explanation. Tranquility means going through in harmony. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is earth, submissive, and below is heaven, strong. Yang is strong inside, yin is submissive outside. Strength and submission unified, yin and yang correspond. It therefore is called tranquility. This hexagram represents the mixing of yin and yang. It follows on the previous hexagram, Nurturance by the small. In Nurturance by the small, one yin nurtures 5 yangs. Yin energy is in charge, and yang energy is not active. Being small in nurturance and unable to be great in nurturance, the activity cannot succeed. The way to successful activity requires that great and small be unharmed, that yin and yang balance each other, yin obeying yang, yang governing yin. Only when yin and yang are harmoniously combined is it possible to accomplish things. Therefore, the way of tranquility is that the small goes and the great comes. It is auspicious and developmental. The small is yin and the great is yang. The small goes means yin submits. The great comes means yang is strong. With yang strong on the inside and yin submissive on the outside, the primordial gradually returns and acquired conditioning gradually melts away. Thereby it is possible to reach the realm of pure yang with no yin. It is a matter of course then to be fortunate in action and for activity to develop. However, in the path of bringing about tranquility, there is a firing process. There is a course of work. If advancing and withdrawing are done with the proper timing, and one is strong yet acts docilely, using docility to nurture strength, one can bring about tranquility and preserve it, understanding essence through understanding life, attaining non-striving through striving, completing the great way. Of this one can be sure. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a general context and underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Nurturance of the great, hexagram 26. In nurturance of the great, it is beneficial to be chaste. It is good not to eat at home. It is beneficial to cross great rivers. Explanation. Nurturance of the great means taking care of the great. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is mountain, still, and below is heaven, strong. Having strength, yet being able to be still, it is therefore called nurturance of the great. This hexagram represents incubation, nurturing the spiritual embryo. It follows on the previous hexagram, return. Return means restoration of the primordial energy. When the primordial energy comes back within, slight and vague to begin with, then becoming clearly evident, it restores the original self. The foundation of life is stabilized. The spiritual embryo is formed, and one enters from striving into non-striving. Then one should carefully seal it and store it securely, forestalling danger, incubating and bathing, aiming for the great transformation, the unfathomable state of spiritual sublimation, making it indestructible and incorruptible. On this path, it is beneficial to still strength, not to use strength. Therefore, the text says, it is beneficial to be chaste. Chastity here means quietude. Stilling strength is nurturing strength. The work of nurturing strength is the work of keeping centered, embracing unity. To keep centered and embrace unity, it is good to be still, not active. If one is still, this preserves strength. If one is active, this damages strength. Stilling is not leaving the world. Quietude is not empty inaction. Therein there is a way of adjustment, addition and subtraction. Therefore one should not eat at home. Only thus is one capable of great nurturance, producing good fortune. Not eating at home means externally adjusting the furnace while internally operating the true fire, still within and also still without, continuing subtly, not forgetting, not forcing. Then when one encounters great danger and difficulty, one is unmoved, unshaken. Only then is it real nurturing. Only then is it greatness of nurturance. Therefore, it is also beneficial to cross great rivers. The crossing of great rivers is that whereby inner nurturance and outer effectiveness is accomplished. This is the work referred to as 9 years facing a wall. Facing a wall is the state of being like a wall of immense height. detached from all kinds of biases and extremes, stopping in unknowing, breaking through space. When you break through space, the spiritual potential is freed. Both body and mind are sublimated, merging with the Tao in reality. With greatness of nurturance comes greatness of development, and one becomes a companion of heaven. We will look at our changing line 6, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. It's the most focused part of the reading and takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 6 has the general context. Beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 6 of Hexagram 11. Tranquility. The castle walls crumble back into dry moats. Don't use the army. Giving orders in one's own domain, even if right, there will be regret. Explanation. At the end of tranquility, the culmination of submission, if you just know the submission of tranquility and not the opposition of tranquility, by not preventing it early on, you will surely fail in the end. This is like castle walls crumbling back into the dry moats. At this time, good things are already gone and cannot be used for strength. So the text says, don't use the army. Misfortunes are at hand and regret does no good. So it says, giving orders in one's own domain, even if right, there will be regret. This is being weak and not knowing to safeguard tranquility early on. So there's a time to bring about tranquility and a time to preserve tranquility. Striving and non-striving both have their methods. Acting according to the time based on the proper method, being strong where appropriate, being docile where appropriate. By strength, one affects tranquility, and by docility, one preserves tranquility. If one is able to affect and preserve tranquility, why worry that one will not be fortunate and not develop and not accomplish the path? We'll also look at the commentary section for each of our hexagrams. Hexagram 11, Tranquility. Earth above, heaven below. When heaven and earth commune, there is tranquility. Thus does the ruler administer the way of heaven and earth and assist the proper balance of heaven and earth, thereby helping the people. Tranquility means success. Above is earth, below is heaven. The energy of heaven rises from above, the energy of earth descends from above. So the energies of heaven and earth, the celestial and mundane, mix together and myriad things are produced. This is the image of tranquility. What the ruler sees in this is that when heaven and earth, yin and yang, mix together, myriad things are born. And when the celestial and earthly elements in humans commune, everything is at peace. On this basis does the ruler then administer the way of heaven and earth and assist the proper balance of heaven and earth. People are born with the energies of yin and yang and the 5 elements. So they have these energies of yin and yang and the 5 elements in their bodies. When these energies are active in the body, they constitute the 5 virtues. The 5 virtues in essence have a natural course, which does not require forced effort. This is called the path of following nature. The ruler who understands the principle of the mutual generation of the 5 elements and causes humanity, justice, courtesy, knowledge, and truthfulness to flow as one energy is administering the natural way of heaven and earth, giving life to humans. The functions of the 5 virtues have their appropriate balance. It will not do to cling to any of them at the expense of the others. This is what is called the teaching of practicing the Tao. The ruler who understands the principle of the mutual overcoming of the 5 elements causes benevolence, justice, courtesy, knowledge, and truthfulness each to attain its appropriate proportion, assisting the proper balance of heaven and earth as it endows humans. Administering the way, assisting in its balance, is the means whereby to accomplish the will of the world and achieve the work of the world, thus helping the people, causing everyone to take the way of heaven and earth as their way, and to take the balance of heaven and earth for their balance, preserving universal harmony intact, each realizing one's true nature and purpose in life. Who does not have the way of heaven and earth? Who does not have the balance of heaven and earth? The only problem is inability to administer and assist the way of its balance. If one can administer and assist the way of and balance of heaven and earth, then it is possible to preserve primordial complete and to dissolve acquired conditioning. When the primordial is complete and conditioning is dissolved, being is natural and action is appropriate. The 5 elements are one energy. The 5 virtues merge. Nature and life are stabilized. What is more, one shares in the functions of heaven and earth. One shares the eternity of heaven and earth. What can compare to that tranquility? And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 26 in the back is called Great Accumulation. Mountain above, heaven below. Heaven is in the mountains, great accumulation. Thus do superior people become acquainted with many precedents of speech and action in order to accumulate virtue. Great accumulation is extensive, amassing and assembling. Above is mountain, below is heaven. This is heaven in the mountains. The sky is vast. Mountains are small in comparison. Being outwardly small, yet inwardly great, is the image of great accumulation. What superior people see in this is that when people are unable to increase their virtue, it is because they presume upon their talent and knowledge. They aggrandize themselves and do not know to emulate the sages of yore. Therefore, superior people become acquainted with many of the words and deeds of people of the past, recording them to foster expansion of consciousness and vision, thereby accumulating and storing their virtue. The lifeline of the psychological teachings of the sages is stored in books. The speech and action of the ancient sages were speech and action of virtue. If one can study widely with serious intent, question earnestly, and think for oneself, then one comes face to face with the sages, says what the ancients said, and does what the ancients did. When speech and action are free from defect, one's virtue accumulates and grows day by day. Only then can one fulfill nature and reach the meaning of life. When both nature and life are comprehended, one is as permanent as heaven, as stable as the mountains. What can compare to the greatness of that accumulation? Next, we will look at the Gnostic Book of Changes by James Dekorne, in which he has synthesized several I-ming commentaries, English translations, some of the more popular ones, and probably better, some of the top, into one helpful place. And I've left links to this in the description box below. And he is a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he Also puts his own helpful editor's notes and the notes and paraphrases at the end, and the judgment section, all that stuff at the end. And he puts quotes from Carl Jung and things like the Kabbalah in it as well. He calls our primary hexagram 11 harmony. Other titles might be peace, the symbol of successfulness, prospering, pervading greatness, tranquility, prosperity, conjunction, major synthesis, hieros gamos, holy marriage. A quote from D.F. Hook, yang supporting yin and going to meet each other. Good prospects for a marriage or partnership. Judgment leg. Harmony shows the inferior departed and the great arrived. There will be good fortune with progress and success. Wilhelm/Baines. Peace. The small departs, the great approaches. Good fortune, success. Blofeld. Peace. The mean decline, the great and good approach. Good fortune and success. In the following hexagram, divorcement, where the trigrams symbolize heaven and earth in what would appear to be their normal positions, that arrangement is held to be disastrous. Whereas here, where they seem to be upside down, everything is propitious. This may be because heaven above earth is held to imply that the two are existing separately without the intercourse which is the root of all growth. Whereas here, their intercourse is so absolute that heaven is actually supporting earth. Ritzema/Karcher. Shiva Shakti, that image of them, intertwined. That makes me think of that. It's 4:44 a.m. Ritzema/Karcher, pervading, the small going, the great coming, significance growing. This hexagram describes their situation in terms of prospering and expanding. It emphasizes that continually spreading this prosperity through communicating is the adequate way to handle it. The image leg, the intercourse of heaven and earth, the image of harmony. The wise ruler models his laws upon the principles of heaven and earth and enforces them for the people's benefit. Wilhelm/Baines, heaven and earth unite, the image of peace. Thus the ruler divides and completes the course of heaven and earth. He furthers and regulates the gifts of heaven and earth, and so aids the people. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes heaven and earth in communion. The component trigrams illustrate the kind of close intercourse just alluded to. This is surely the only way of depicting it under the circumstances, for any mingling of their component lines would produce quite different trigrams, having no reference to heaven and earth. It is as though a mighty ruler, by careful regulation of affairs, has brought to fruition the way of heaven and earth. In harmony with the sequence of their motions, he gives help to people on every hand. Lu, heaven and earth are unified, symbolizing peace. The ruler reforms and completes the way of heaven and earth. He observes the appropriate methods of heaven and earth to direct the people. Ritzema/Karcher, heaven and earth mingling, pervading. The crown prince uses property to accomplish heaven and earth's Tao. The crown prince uses bracing to mutualize heaven and earth's propriety. The crown prince uses the left to right the commoners. Clary 1, when heaven and earth commune, there is tranquility. Thus does the ruler administer the way of heaven and earth and assist the people, the proper balance of heaven and earth, thereby helping the people. Wu, prosperity results from the interaction of heaven and earth. The king uses the wealth of the nation to achieve the ways of heaven and earth and to support their designs, so as to bring the sentiments of the people to the center. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, harmony shows the union of heaven and earth and all things consequently united, high and low, superior and inferior are all in accord. The lower trigram is made up of dynamic lines and the upper of magnetic lines. Strength is within, devotion is without. The superior man is inside and increasing. The inferior man is outside and decreasing. Leg, The judgment refers to the structure of the hexagram with the 3 dynamic lines below and the 3 magnetic lines above. The former are the great, active and vigorous. The latter are the inferior, passive and yielding. In many editions of the I Ching, beneath the hexagram of harmony, there appears hexagram number 54, propriety, which becomes harmony if the 3rd and 4th lines exchange places. A situation in which the motive forces are represented by 3 dynamic and the opposing by 3 magnetic lines must be progressive and successful. Harmony is called the hexagram of the first month of the natural spring, when for 6 months the forces of growth are in ascendance. In the sacred trees of Druidry, the 7 sacred trees, oak is the oak king, and it rules the year at this period of time when things are on the ascendant, when the sun moves from setting earlier and earlier to later and later, and the days expand. That period of time. Holly, the holly king, is the one that takes over from there when the sun starts, being up less long during the day. Canon McClatchy translates, "The image means that heaven and earth have now conjugal intercourse with each other, and the upper and lower classes unite together." Chang Tzu says on the image that a ruler should frame his laws to operate like the seasons, so that the people exist within the structure of a natural rather than an arbitrary order. Notes and paraphrases judgment. Harmony depicts the waning of egotistical illusions and the waxing of true potential. The superior man allows his inner virtue to rule the psyche. Without changing lines, harmony suggests a fruitful union of opposites and consequent state of balance in the matter at hand. Wilhelm translates the opening phrase of the Confucian commentary as "heaven and earth unite." Blofeld renders it, "the celestial and terrestrial forces have intercourse, and all things are in communion with one another." Legge has already called attention to McClatchy's version of "heaven and earth have now conjugal intercourse with each other." This image is one of the most universal symbols produced by the human psyche, the sexual union of spirit and matter, heaven and earth. This is the Hieros Gamos, or holy marriage of alchemy, the union of Shiva and Shakti in Hinduism, the conjoined male and female deities in Tantric Buddhism, the syzygies of Gnosticism, and the union of heaven and earth in the Kabbalah. A quote from M. Kaltenmark in Lao Tzu and Taoism. I have that book, it's incredible. The notions of the couple and the sacred marriage held a very important place in ancient Chinese religious thinking. Every sacred power was twofold, male and female. But since only one half of the sacred couple was generally enclosed in any one sanctuary, the ritual was directed at reconstituting the whole. The complete being is male and female. Since most men neglect or repress their feminine nature, they are out of balance. Their male aggressiveness comes to the fore, and their whole vitality suffers. There can be no true holiness without a prior revitalization of femininity. Psychologically, the condition pictured by this hexagram is a metaphor for a high state of integration within the psyche. Here it is described in alchemical and Jungian terminology. A quote from M.E. Harding in Psychic Energy. "The hermetic vessel is oneself. In it, the many pieces of psychic stuff scattered throughout one's world must be collected and fused into one, so making a new creation. In it must occur the union of the opposites, called by the alchemists the conjunctio or marriage. This union, in psychological terms, corresponds to man with his feminine soul, the anima, or to a woman with her masculine counterpart, the animus. The union in each case constituting the inner marriage, the hieros gamos by which the individual must become whole." To receive this hexagram does not necessarily mean that one has attained such a high integration, but it might indicate a step in that direction. The ultimate hierosgamos only occurs after all of the scattered and mismatched forces within the psyche have been brought together in correct alignment. In I Ching terms, when all of the lines are in their proper places with proper correlates, as imaged in hexagram number 63, completion. Until this final union, there are innumerable lesser conjunctions which must first take place, a fact recognized in Tantric Yoga. A quote from Mircea Eliade in Myths, Rites, Symbols. The final goal of the Tantricist is to reunite the two contrary principles, Shiva and Shakti, in his own body. When Shakti, who sleeps in the shape of a serpent at the base of his body, is awoken by certain yogic techniques, she moves through a medial channel by way of the chakras up to the top of the skull, where Shiva dwells, and unites with him. The union of the divine pair within his own body transforms the yogin into a kind of androgyny. But it must be stressed that androgenization is only one aspect of a total process, that of the reunion of the opposites. Actually, Tantric literature speaks of a great number of opposing pairs that have to be reunited. The establishment of the kingdom of heaven on earth is yet another metaphor for this process of psychic unification. Here is the Kabbalistic version. A quote from the Zohar. It is by the establishment of the celestial on the terrestrial, or of heaven upon earth, that the house of the king, humanity, will become united, and the king will rejoice thereat. For then the two kingdoms will become one, and then the new and living way will become opened to those who make themselves susceptible and receptive of the higher and diviner life. When these two worlds become united and blended together, they are symbolized by the union of the male and female, the one being the complement of the other. Suggestions for meditation. Legge points out that many editions of the I Ching associate hexagram number 54, propriety, with this figure. What do the changing third and fourth lines of propriety imply about the role of the ego in the work? The traditional name for propriety is the marrying maiden. How does that relate to the concept of the holy marriage in harmony? Compare the judgments and images of the two hexagrams and the role of the superior man in each. Note also the lesson implied when lines 2 and 5 in harmony unite to make hexagram number 63 completion. Ooh. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 26, James Dekorne calls controlled power. Other titles might be The Taming Power of the Great, The Great Nourisher, Taming the Great Powers, Great Accumulating, Great Accumulation, Great Storage, Nurturance of the Great, Great Buildup, Restraint of the Great, Restraint by the Strong, Potential Energy, The Great Taming Force, Energy Under Control, Power Restrained, Sublimation, Latent power, judgment, Legge. Controlled power means being firm and correct. If its subject doesn't enjoy his family revenues at the expense of public service, there will be good fortune. It will be advantageous to cross the great stream. Wilhelm/Baines, The Taming Power of the Great. Perseverance furthers. Not eating at home brings good fortune. It furthers one to cross the great water. Blofeld, The Great Nourisher, favors righteous persistence. Good fortune results from not eating at home. It is favorable time for crossing the great river or sea, i.e. going on a long journey, perhaps abroad. Lu, Taming the Great Powers, persistence benefits. Not to eat at home is good fortune. It is of benefit to cross the great water. Ritzema/Karcher, Great Accumulating, harvesting trial, not dwelling, taking in, significant, harvesting, wading the great river. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of an overriding concern that defines what is valuable. It emphasizes that bringing the variety of things under the control of this central idea is the adequate way to handle it. Slofnacy, Great Storage, beneficial to determine. Not eating at home is auspicious, beneficial to ford the great river. Wu, restraint of the great indicates prosperity and perseverance. It will be auspicious not to have meals at home. It will be advantageous to cross the big river. The character Chu in the present context has two meanings. One is to accumulate and the other to restrain. The image, leg. Heaven in the midst of the mountain, the image of controlled power. Thus the superior man studies the words and deeds of ancient men in order to build his virtue. Wilhelm/Baines, heaven within the mountain, the image of the taming power of the great. Thus the superior man acquaints himself with many sayings of antiquity and many deeds of the past in order to strengthen his character thereby. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes the sky visible amidst the mountain peaks. The superior man, acting from his profound knowledge of the words and conduct of the wise men of old, nourishes his virtue. The arrangement of the component trigrams suggests glimpses of the sky among the peaks of the mountains. This points to something very far off and thereby indicates the advisability of setting out for some distant place. This is a time for going from home and giving concrete expression to our appreciation of what others have done for us or for the public good. Lu, heaven within the mountain symbolizes taming the great powers. The wise man studies ancient knowledge to improve his character. Ritzema/Karcher, heaven located in mountain center, great accumulating. A Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses accumulating one's actualizing Tao. No, a Chun Tzu uses the numerous recorded preceding words going to move. A Chun Tzu uses accumulating one's actualizing Tao. And actualized Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being become what is meant to be. Clary 1, heaven is in the mountains, great accumulation. Thus do superior people become acquainted with many precedents of speech and action in order to accumulate virtue. Clary 2, leaders build up their virtues by abundant knowledge of past words and deeds. Wu, heaven is within the mountain. This is restraint of the great. Thus the Chun-Si accumulates his virtue by remembering past words and deeds. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. The trigrams that compose controlled power show the intelligence of strength and mass renewing their virtue every day. Show the intelligence of strength and mass renewing their virtue every day. A dynamic line is in the highest place, displaying the worth of talent and virtue. Yes, I know you didn't download this iOS. Thank you. His is the power that keeps strength in restraint and displays the will necessary to the hexagram. Talents and virtue are nourished because he refuses to confine his power within his immediate family. Heaven in the second line responds to the ruler in the fifth. Thus it is favorable to cross the great stream. Leg. Controlled power symbolizes both restraint and the accumulation of virtue. What is restrained accumulates its strength and increases its volume to become a great reservoir of force. The judgment teaches that if one is firm and correct in this endeavor, he may then engage in public service and enjoy the king's grace. The dynamic line in the highest place is line 6, who is above the ruler and has all of heaven in which to move. This, plus the power to suppress the strongest opposition, shows how he is supported by all that is correct. Concerning the image, Chu Hsi says, heaven is the greatest of all things, and its being in the midst of a mountain gives us the idea of a very large accumulation. This is analogous to the labor of the superior man in learning, acquiring, and remembering to accumulate his virtue. Notes and paraphrases, judgment. Controlled power is willpower. The ego renounces selfish indulgences to work for the good of the whole. With such a spirit, great transformations are possible. The superior man studies the precepts of the work to increase his comprehension and fortitude. The essential image to remember in this hexagram is that of Mount Everest, holding down heaven itself. Raw power is controlled by the sheer mass of keeping still. Thus we see that controlled power is willpower, arguably the most potentially creative force in the universe. Because used correctly, it can accomplish anything. A quote from Roberto Asciagoli in Psychosynthesis: "The will is curiously not recognized as the central and fundamental function of the ego. It has often been depreciated as being ineffective against the various drives and the power of the imagination, or it has been considered with suspicion as leading to self-assertion, as in the will to power. But the latter is only a perverted use of the will, while the apparent futility of the will is due only to a faulty and unintelligent use. The will is ineffective only when it attempts to act in opposition to the imagination and to the other psychological functions, while its skillful and consequently successful use consists in regulating and directing all other functions toward a deliberately chosen and affirmed aim." Crowley highly emphasized the will, with a controlled will, the will under control, and the will of the higher self being, the true will. An extreme example of this is illustrated by Cleary's commentary on the Judgment, where he says, "This is the work referred to as 9 years facing a wall." The reference is to Bodhidharma, the patriarch who brought Zen Buddhism to China, who meditated facing a wall for 9 continuous years until he attained enlightenment. If its subject doesn't enjoy his family revenues at the expense of public service, there will be good fortune, is an image of the ego renouncing its illusions of free choice. Psychologically, inner complexes will drain energy from the situation unless the ego has the will to control their manifestation. Every line except the 6th depicts some kind of restraint of power. Only in the top line is the energy available for use. It is significant that the superior man is advised to study the ancient wisdom, for it is in the mysteries, the perennial philosophy, that one discovers the secrets and applications of the will. In other contexts, for example, a question about business matters, this can refer to making connection with sound and established practices. In the larger philosophical sense, we see that the evolving illusions of every age ensure that the masses will remain attached to the wheel of birth and death, continuously repeating endless variations of the same basic lessons. When each individual is finally ready to escape from these cycles, it is only within the ancient and eternal template of the work that transcendence can be found. A quote from A. Jaffe in The Myth of Meaning: "The analogies between religious ideas in Jewish mysticism that are hundreds of years old and the scientific findings of modern psychology can be explained only by the archetypal structure of the psyche. Man's images and ideas concerning the mysteries of being fall into the timeless patterns arranged by the archetypes of the unconscious. His meditations are determined by them. Within the setting of his culture and his time, he creates new forms for the expression of age-old truths. Through contact with the self, negative cycles can be broken and positive cycles begun, but it always requires a mountain's worth of controlled power to make it happen." Next, we will look at our changing line 6 of our primary hexagram, 11, Tranquility or Flow. It's the most focused part of the reading, takes precedence over all other elements, and those things. Changing line 6 has the general context beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 6 of hexagram 11, harmony is what James Dekorne calls it. Changing line 6, leg. The 6th line magnetic shows us the city wall returned to the moat. It is not the time to use the army. The subject of the line may announce her orders to the people of her own city, but however firm and correct she may be, she will have cause for regret. Wilhelm/Baines, the wall falls back into the moat. Use no army now. Make your commands known within your own town. Perseverance brings humiliation. Blofeld, the wall has tumbled into the moat. Do not put up a fight, but just maintain order in the village. Although this is the right course, blame cannot be avoided. We shall be blamed for not being more aggressive, even though circumstances more than warrant our failure to be so. Lu, the wall collapses into the moat. Do not use force. Make announcements to the people in your own town. Continuing brings humiliation. Ritzema/Karcher, the bulwark returned, tending towards the moat. No availing of legions, originating from the capital, notifying fate, trial, abashment. Slofnessy, the city wall falls into the moat. Do not use troops. From the city announced the mandate. Determination is stressful. Clary 1, the castle walls crumble back into dry moats. Don't use the army. Giving orders in one's own domain. Even if right, there will be regret. Clary 2, announcing order in one's own locality is shameful in spite of correctness. Wu, the moat around the city wall has dried. No military action is advisable. The local authority has given conflicting orders to the townspeople. The people should be persevering, but even so, they may still feel humiliated. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. The governmental orders have long been in disorder. Wilhelm/Baines, his plans fall into confusion. Blofeld, this signifies a troubled destiny. Ritzema/Karcher, one's fate disarrayed indeed. Clary 2, order is in disarray. Wu, the orders have been contradictory. Leg, the course denoted by harmony has been run, and will be followed by one of a different and unhappy character. The earth dug from the moat had been built up to form a projecting wall, but it is now again fallen into the ditch. War will only aggravate the evil, and however the ruler may address good proclamations to the people of the capital, the coming evil cannot be altogether averted. Notes and paraphrases, Sue. The government has long been in disarray. Despite all proclamations to the contrary, ill fortune is at hand. War will only aggravate the situation. The subject should submit to fate, keep inwardly free, and ameliorate the harm done to those nearest him. The bad time will pass. Wing, a decline has begun. It is of the external world, and nothing can be done to hold it back. Such attempts will bring you humiliation. Instead, devote your time to strengthening your ties with those close to you. Editor, a walled city is a concentration of similar elements in one place. Within its walls dwell all of the factors which go to make up whatever it is that the city represents. Perhaps an attitude or belief. For example, suppose I believe that the world is flat. All of the thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and emotions which contribute to this belief live in the city. If I have an experience which strongly challenges my belief, say a photograph taken of the Earth from outer space which definitely proves that my belief in a flat Earth is incorrect, then one could say that the walls of my city have collapsed. Now I could fight this and say that obviously the outer space photograph is a fake. I could try to maintain my belief regardless of all the evidence to the contrary. However, the realistic response to the situation would not be to use the army, defend the indefensible, but to just let the dust settle, inform the people in the city, the now outmoded thoughts and feelings, that the situation has changed and that the best response is to sit tight and see what emerges from the rubble. A quote from B. Brutu in The Psychic Grid. A community's conviction system is its castle, a walled city to protect it against alternative interpretations of the great and unknown reality in the midst of which it must somehow live. James Dekorne breaks changing line 6 down into one possible succinct definition. A distinction is dissolved, a belief is shattered. Don't fight it, let it be. Change is in process and confusion prevails. Control your emotions and maintain order within the psyche. Despite turmoil, take no action. Allow the transformation to complete itself. Now we will get a randomly card-drawn verse from the Tao Te Ching while we sum the reading up. I do also want to show you this. Not that. That's to here. Looks like an alien head. It's kind of weird and creepy. Big rock. I think I got this from... Where the hell did I get it? Whiskey Creek Beach. I believe I got it. So, our primary hexagram 11, Tranquility or Flow or Harmony, I think is what it said, in James Dekorne, shows Kuan Heaven below Kun Earth. And this is the Hyros Gamos, or Shiva Shakti, in the midst of their copulation. And it's basically, everything is all myriad beings are being produced here. And great power is able to be put towards sort of like spring is in the ascendant. So things are blossoming. There's a lot of energy that is at hand for whatever. And then our supporting hexagram 26, Nurturance of the Great, shows a buildup of energy and also a restraining of it at the same time, like a containing of it. It's got a mountain, Gen Mountain above Kuan Heaven. So Kuan Heaven is like power or strength, and the mountain is like stability. And so it's like heaven being within a mountain. It makes me think of the holy mountain, that idea that Hilary Barrett even brought about the idea of Mount Tai, I believe, being like the Chinese version of this, the holy sacred mountain. Many cultures and beliefs had mountains that they viewed as sacred. The one in the story of Moses was, what was that mountain that he was? Sinai, that's right. And anyway, when you go up these mountains, you can interact with the divine. That's the concept. It touches heaven, so it's the place where someone from the earth could go up to the peak and be as if touching heaven and interacting with God in that sense, or the gods, or what have you. I do want to read, first we'll jump to the changing line, get the kind of general scope of things, and then we'll look deeper in. But the changing line 6 shows a wall that crumbled down into a moat. And its advice is not to use the army, and that basically what cycle we were in is over. And now it's almost like the idea of certain ideas being seen through so completely that we can't rebuild in the same way again. That from this point forward, we're to see what develops. We, interestingly enough, only 3 readings ago, I believe, got Tranquility, hexagram 11, as our primary hexagram then. And then it was interesting too, because after that, there was the idea of trying to integrate those still, but in a lesser way. And then the next reading we got after that, it was only one off of each of the hexagrams, either above or below, I can't remember, which was weird. I don't think I've ever had that happen, where the hexagrams from the reading before were just one off on each of them. I noticed that. It was odd. But now we're back to flow again. And also something that was interesting, there was the idea of an end, I think in our changing line of one of the last readings. And it was like the closing of a cycle. And here it's like that cycle has fully closed and the walls are down, and we are to sit in that space, not build walls up, not send out the army, but figure out what kind of space we're now in and adjust to that, because the old city cannot be rebuilt. So let's read from Hilary Barrett to start out with. Hers was incredible. Flow, Hexagram 11. Key questions. How will you work with this extraordinary potential? How can you channel the flow of energy to create harmony? Flow is a sign of the free and full expression of tremendous creative energy. It is the name of China's most sacred mountain, Tai, which is imbued with spiritual power. The king would have great offerings at its summit to establish a flourishing, peaceful relationship with heaven. This is a time to create harmony with the greater flow, letting its energy pour into creative manifestation as a river flows down into a fertile valley. Pettiness is swept away downstream, and the way opens for free communication. Great things become possible. The true scale of things is revealed, dwarfing your smaller concerns. You sense the powers that surge through your life and know how far beyond your control they are, yet you can enter into true relationship with them and participate in flow. And in the image, creative force flows through the earth, potential joins with the space for growth, everything is possible. The prince, blessed with flow, wholly invests himself in bringing it to fruition in the human realm. He weaves the powers of inspiration and realization together into a synergistic context for creative work. To bring out its full potential, he will work actively to bring all people, energies, and areas of life into harmony inside its embrace. In the sequence, treading and also flow, and then there is peace, and so flow follows. Flow means flowing together. Treading behind the tiger, you learn to respond, dance, and move skillfully with great powers. With flow, you come into close relationship with them. To be tranquil with such potent energy rather than engulfed by it, you will need to know how to tread. In treading, that hexagram, it's walking on the tail of a tiger. Oh, we'll also look at our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram. If you kill the tiger or succeed in walking on the tiger's tail without getting bit, then you're able to wield the power of the tiger. Our supporting hexagram puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 26 is great taming. Key questions: how can you make the most of the potential? How would it be to master this? Oracle. The farmer both restrains and controls the energies of nature and also builds up natural resources and nurtures their growth. He tames. Great taming means doing this work with an end in mind, thinking of what can be achieved in future by controlling and accumulating the energies available now. Steady persistence over time, letting each crop complete its growth, will yield good harvests. This enables you to go beyond your habitual boundaries and nourish yourself on new experience. You can go where more will be asked of you and your gifts will be of greater service. You can sustain values beyond mere survival. The aim is not to achieve perfect control, staying home and accumulating as an end in itself. Whatever you accumulate becomes a springboard to new commitments and explorations. Great taming cultivates the resources for life on a larger scale. And in the image, heaven, the creative force, dwells at the center of what it creates. The present contains the principle and energy that shaped it, and all this is available in the store of memory and written words. A noble one goes into this mountain cave of treasures to read and absorb, cultivating his own quality of character and personal power. I don't know if anyone has seen The Last Airbender, the Avatar series of Nickelodeon. I believe it was on that channel. But Aang goes into this cave in a mountain, and he's like learning with the ancients, his ancient incarnations, I believe. And that's what that makes me think of, going into the mountain to read the words of the sages. I've seen, I don't know if anyone's seen these memes or this video. This kid is like taking a book and doing this with it, right? And wafting. I feel as though, at least I sense myself in taking in words of the sages or ancient writings, that there's a power in them that's palpable. Obviously, it should be used and nurtured and acted on for it to fully be unlocked, and for the potential inherent in it to be capitalized on. But that's what we're doing here, right? So, and that's the advice of our supporting hexagram, is to bring in wide variety of ancient writings from the sages, accumulating them and mulling them over in this way to build up oneself and to build up others. Our primary hexagram 11 in Liu I-ming's Taoist I Ching, rather. Tranquility. This hexagram represents mixing of yin and yang. It follows on the previous hexagram, Nurturance by the small. In Nurturance by the small, one yin nurtures 5 yangs. Yin energy is in charge and yang energy is not active. Being small in nurturance and unable to be great in nurturance, the activity cannot succeed. The way to successful activity requires that great and small be unharmed, that yin and yang balance each other, yin obeying yang, yang governing yin. Only when yin and yang are harmoniously combined is it possible to accomplish things. Therefore, the way of tranquility is that the small goes and the great comes. It is auspicious and developmental. The small is yin and the great is yang. Let's see here. With yang strong on the inside and yin submissive on the outside, the primordial gradually returns and acquired conditioning gradually melts away. Thereby it is possible to reach the realm of pure yang with no yin. It is a matter of course then to be fortunate in action and for activity to develop. However, in the path of bringing about tranquility, there is a firing process, there is a course of work. If advancing and withdrawing are done with the proper timing and one is strong yet acts docilely, using docility to nurture strength, one can bring about tranquility and preserve it. Understanding essence through understanding life, attaining non-striving through striving, completing the great way. Of this one can be sure. And then in our supporting hexagram 26, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all, 26, nurturance of the great. This hexagram represents incubation, nurturing the spiritual embryo. It follows on the previous hexagram, return. Return means restoration of the primordial energy. When the primordial energy comes back within, slight and vague to begin with, then becoming clearly evident, it restores the original self. The foundation of life is stabilized, the spiritual embryo is formed, and one enters from striving into non-striving. Then one should carefully seal it and store it securely, forestalling danger, incubating and bathing, aiming for the great transformation, the unfathomable state of spiritual sublimation, making it indestructible and incorruptible. On this path, it is beneficial to still strength, not to use strength. Therefore, the text says it is beneficial to be chaste. Chastity here means quietude. Stilling strength is nurturing strength. The work of nurturing strength is the work of keeping centered, embracing unity. To keep centered and embrace unity, it is good to be still, not active. If one is still, this preserves strength. If one is active, this damages strength. Stilling is not leaving the world. Quietude is not empty inaction. Therein there is a way of adjustment, addition and subtraction. Therefore one should not eat at home. Only thus is one capable of great nurturance producing good fortune. Not eating at home means externally adjusting the furnace while internally operating the true fire. Still within and also still without. Continuing subtly, not forgetting, not forcing. Then when one encounters great danger and difficulty, one is unmoved, unshaken. Only then is it real nurturing. Only then is it greatness of nurturance. Therefore it is also beneficial to cross great rivers. The crossing of great rivers is that whereby inner nurturance and outer effectiveness is accomplished. This is the work referred to as 9 years facing a wall. Facing a wall is the state of being like a wall of immense height, detached from all kinds of biases and extremes, stopping in unknowing, breaking through space. When you break through space, the spiritual potential is freed. Both body and mind are sublimated, merging with the Tao in reality. With greatness of nurturance comes greatness of development, and one becomes a companion of heaven. It makes me think of when you get across the stream with the boat, you leave the boat behind. It's the idea of the tool that gets you to that climax point of knowing the unknown, which is unknowable. The tool itself must be abandoned. There's no word that can describe the ineffable. That's why it's the ineffable. We can approach it, but with Moses ascending Mount Sinai, the most he ever got to see, I believe, was, God's back. That's kind of the idea, is that there's nothing we're going to be able to do with our intellectual minds to fully comprehend something that is uncomprehendable by that means. In the building up of our understanding of ancient writings of sages and mystics, this gives us a tool to climb Mount Sinai, if you will, climb the holy mountain. But ultimately, Moses coming down the mountain, this is mixing metaphors, as it were, but had to break the 10 Commandments stones, the tablets of stone. That's a very similar, I guess, kind of thought that I've never combined those two concepts together. But that idea of we can do our best to write down the words of heaven, as the sages have attempted to do, and understand them as we ourselves are attempting to do. And that elevates us in a sense. But ultimately, there's to be that non-striving behind everything, and that giving up of cherished ideals and ideas. And any idea that we hold on to ends up controlling us and distorting things. So all, essentially, before God must be completely abandoned, stripped naked, bare, and the embryo, this new infant, must spring forth, and the walls of our city that we once lived in for our changing line 6 have crumbled into the moat, and there is no sense in setting out the army. There's no sense in rebuilding the walls of the city. We're in a new space here. The last reading and the one before it, I think both in the summation of them, we came to the conclusion that categories need to be redefined. Walls of separation need to be seen through for the false separation that they represent. We do have boundaries that need to be honored. And yet at the same time, something even larger unifies us than that could ever separate us. Our access to the divine is our own breath. It's nothing that anyone could grant us access to. It is an inherent right that everyone has. It's as near as our own breath. And we can point a finger at the moon, but the finger needs eventually to be chopped off almost, and only the moon remain reflected in all of the pools. And so this one moon being reflected in all of these pools is like this understanding of awareness or sentience that permeates everything, and that there's no gaps, that this is this harmonious play of this cosmic organism, essence, the Tao, God, the ineffable, maybe even the void, but this thing that everything springs forth from, that this moment right now is being birthed from, that, what's behind your eyes, what's behind all of our eyes when we interact, when we look into each other's eyes, when we look into the mirror and look into our own eyes, what is looking back at us? What is behind this? What is behind all of this? That is the unifying that nothing can put a facade over that is believable. Nothing can do that. And yet to touch or enter into that space is a sacred thing that walls, definitions do not belong. Relating things again to the idea of the Jewish scriptures, they wouldn't say the name of God. They put the consonants together, the Yahweh thing, and they wouldn't pronounce it. They wouldn't pronounce it all the way for what it actually is. I think we still don't know what the pronouncement of it was supposed to actually be and how they would pronounce that, because you kept that out of your mouth. You wouldn't take something and claim. I believe also there was the idea in multiple cultures that to know the name of a god or deity was to have control over that. That just to know it, you now wielded the power of that, or you could call it into help you or what have you. But that understanding of not even treading in that space, to know that it is beyond you. It's not something that you could control. It's something that you embody it. You're an embodiment of this thing that is behind all of reality, wherein time and space dissolve entirely. People like Einstein reach their wits' end, and even Einstein and others like him, with all of their understanding and intellectualism, would go back to a space where they would enter into the domain of the shamanic, that idea of that lucid space between waking and sleeping where inspiration occurs. Many what we would consider genius people and composers would use that type of thing to gain inspiration. And it's almost as if what they would say about it, music coming out of them and them really just being kind of like the pencil or the tool that was being used to spill this out. People that channel, or people that do tarot readings or whatever divination system, often view it that way, that the divine is using them through their particular manifestation to do a thing. And that is what we're honoring. We're honoring that. Obviously, things are to be done to make sure that we're not encroaching on anyone else's boundaries or doing any, but that's what the principles of the work are for. these writings of the sages that give us a little bit of understanding of the possible space we're entering with the walls stripped down, that we're entering a space that does have a certain amount of a way that you can sense it. Like these are some of its potential characteristics and how it might embody or come into our 3D reality. And so our supporting hexagram pushing us towards going over these things is for our own good. It would be easy to go rogue and feel as though that sense of being connected to all can give you a swelled head, and is something that needs to be ruled and figured out according to the perennial philosophy like James Dekorne talked about, but that idea of these writings and these wise sayings being something that can keep us on the way or the path. Still have not got, here we go. That's too many. Apologize. I'm gonna take this one because it's 11. It's partially in, partially out. My copy of the Tao Te Ching is by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. Verse 11 of the Tao Te Ching. "30 spokes share the wheel's hub. It is the center hole that makes it useful. Shape clay into a vessel. It is the space within that makes it useful. Cut doors and windows for a room. It is the holes which make it useful. Therefore, profit comes from what is there, usefulness from what is not there."